lot of people will say William Shatner isn't so hot as an actor, but when you see him in this is his finest
I
hour.
think I actually think William Shatner is a really good actor. I think that it. I don't think that I think sometimes he hams it out pretty hard, but I just challenge people to go back and watch an episode like The Devil in the Dark
Hmm.
and tell me that William Shatner's not a good actor.
Well, I'm not speaking about me personally because
No,
I
I
agree with
know.
you, but I
We've
do
talked
feel
about
that
it before.
yeah, I mean a lot of people will give a lot of static for what he does.
Yeah.
And yes, he does deliver some hilariously over the top performances. But in this, in Star Trek II Wrath of Khan, William Shatner deserves all the awards for
He's
what he brings to the table.
very subtle, honestly.
And you really feel that he's saying goodbye to his friend. That scene between, Nimoy and Shatner, and it's like you have Nimoy who's in this glass case,
Yes.
of toxic radiation, and then you have Shatner on the other side, and they oh, man, what he says, I have been and always shall be your friend. Oh, I paraphrased it. I might have said it wrong, but watch the movie. Just watch that part. It's just, oh man, I have to say, excuse me, I have to say, when Shatner comes down to see Nimoy, that like he just comes down this ladder and he's older, he just like kind of grabs the sides of the ladder and he slides down, and he's got his like boots on the outside and he slides
Yeah,
down.
he can't even use the rungs because he's in such a hurry to get down there.
Yeah, yeah,
And that is Shatner.
yeah.
That is not a stunt guy.
No.
Clearly Shatner.
Yeah.
Sliding down this ladder like it's like a fire pole or something to get there because of the urgency of this moment. And it's great. And
Yeah.
he plays it like very subtly and very emotionally. I think he did a really good job.
Fantastic. And then he does the eulogy for Spock at the end, which again, he kind of cracks up there emotionally, and you just see the faces of everyone in the room. It's a very sad ending
Yeah.
for the film, but it's like they launch Spock, in this torpedo casing, out into
Weird,
space.
but okay.
It's super weird. Out into space, and then he ends up on the Genesis planet after the process has started.
Yeah.
And then we find out in the next movie that, Spock has been reborn. That's a whole other story.
Yeah.
But in this film, we're seeing Captain Kirk deal with his own mortality.
Yes.
He's thinking he's an old man and he's done.
Yeah.
And, all of his friends say, you just like all of these old things, and as, McCoy said, you're behind a desk. He just didn't really feel like there was anything good anymore. It felt
Yeah.
like a man that was really ready to give up. And in this movie, he's back in the saddle where he should be. He's
Yes.
back in action with all of his friends, doing what he knows how to do best, and that brings him back.
Yeah.
And then he runs into Carol Marcus. And then that love kind of sparks back up again over the course of the film. It's like, oh wow, okay, I've got this. Then he meets David, his son. It's like, oh my God, I've got a son. And all of these things just keep going for him, and he feels like he's got his old magic back. Even when they go on to Regula One and they see this horror show of dead bodies, okay, before they go to the planetoid and they go to where Project Genesis is, Captain Kirk is still able to crack a joke with McCoy.
Yeah.
McCoy says, we don't know what these transporters are set for. And he's like, well, you'll finally get that vacation you've been looking for. No, what does he say? You'll finally be able to get away from it all. And it's like, okay, he's got that back. And you're like, all right.
Well, it's where he belongs. Like, this dude belongs on a starship. Like, clearly, Kirk is no Hamlet,
No, and
Kirk is a man of action. He needs to be in action. And when you see him inert, at the beginning of this movie, you just see it's like a real fish out of water thing because he doesn't fit. and he's able to regain that. The relationship with his son by the end of the movie is reconciled.
Yes, well, and he also says that he's never dealt with a no-win situation. And in this film, he does actually get the real-life Kobayashi Maru.
Yes, because he cannot save Spock. There's no way for him to save him
there's
in this
nothing.
scenario.
There's nothing that he has that, there's nothing that can stop it.
Yeah, and that's he has to like accept it and live in that moment of being powerless. And you know, while it is horrible for him, it also teaches him something, I think, as well, that like he can deal with that. He can, you know, take what he learns from that and go forward. And I think what it teaches him is that he can't go back to what he was doing, just being like this guy who is just, you know, an admiral and is behind a desk resting on his laurels anymore. He has to like live his life now.
Well, and he also, you know, says to Savick, you know, it's not necessarily about the way, what's the line? It's about facing life and death. And saying that you need to face death like the way you face life, something like that. Yeah. It's a horrible paraphrase. It's horrible. I don't think I'm making any point. But what I'm saying is that Captain Kirk ran away from death. He always thought that he could dodge it, and he always thought that there was an escape. And that was like a boyish quality that he had.
Yeah.
And at the end of the film, right before, you know, he has his reconciliation with his son David, he is saying, you know, I've just run from this stuff. You know, and then he goes through this where he grows up. That's what's funny. Kirk is scared of being old, but over the course of this film, he actually matures. He becomes a father.
Yeah.
You know, and he becomes a man that has really faced serious adversity, has faced death. And when he accepts that, and he's able to say, okay, you know, here I am, I'm still going. His son says, I'm proud to have you as my father.
Yeah.
And that just moves him, you know, to the next phase. And then he's just looking out into space, and he quotes Tale of Two Cities, the book that Spock gave him. Mm-hmm. It was the best of times, it was the worst of times.
Yes. And that's like, you know, he's learned something that he has never learned.
No.
And it just shows you that even if you're like this, you know, 50-year-old dude, which doesn't seem that old to me anymore.
Right?
That you can always learn something new, and you can always change, and there's always a new challenge ahead. And that kind of galvanizes him to retake his life.
Yes.
And like make it what it should be. And I think that's awesome. It's a great freaking movie.
It's a great movie.